Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence. Put in the work for yourself and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, here we are on Thursday, January 11th. We're going to take a look at Palantir today. So, quick recap on Palantir. It's been caught under this downtrend resistance since it left this like $21-ish level. It's tapped it a few times, fell into this gap. You see this big gap that it left here when it ran up over 20% on this day. These are the purple lines, the entry and exit points-ish. And recently it swung to a low of 1566. However, the gap doesn't fill until about 1496. And so there's still some space in there, even though it's started to climb now and has done a couple of things off of levels that we have on the chart. It established some price action over this 1603, but then what did it do? It tapped near that 1696, came back inside day, continued on, tried to push through that 1696, couldn't hold it. Now doing that again today so far, and we'll see how that plays out, doing a nice wick up today, even though it had wicked down yesterday. So let's see how that plays out, but today it's almost stretching the entire breadth of the 1603 to 1696 levels. Now, the other thing it's encountering is this downtrend resistance. So not only is it hitting 1696 resistance, as well as the 1721 resistance, which is pretty near in if it does try to push through, but that downtrend resistance, which has held up several times. So the challenging thing with trend lines versus support and resistance levels is support and resistance levels, you go there enough times and eventually the buyers or the sellers just aren't there anymore, and you sort of either capitulate down or you break through a wall. A trend line is a bit tougher often because that trend line is in a different spot, right? It tapped this trend line and shrugged off of it up at 19 here. It did it up here at above 20. And so now it's doing it again, a bit below 17. And so it's just sort of like, the persistence of it can be a bit more daunting than general support and resistance levels. And the other thing, is just if it does sort of peel back on this a little bit, depending on how hard it bangs off of it. If it doesn't push through, if it bangs off of it and peels back down, you'll be interested to see what it does around this like 16.25 level, because if it needs to dip down all the way to this 1603 again, even if it catches some initial support, it's peeling back lower than where it was able to grab some support in these recent areas. And so that to me wouldn't be a superb sign for the Palantir bulls, but there are a lot of levels to get through here. 1603, and then we have a tight end chain of events here, 1544, 1530, and then that 1505, which isn't the actual gap fill. That's just a support level that we had that's very close to the level. Just keep in mind that level, the high this day was 1496 to fill that gap. So, it's sort of like it's toying with the idea of being able to push back toward the entry point of this gap without having filled it. But there are a tremendous number of resistance levels right there. So we'll see. It doesn't mean it can't have the oomph to do it. Obviously, Palantir can make some wildly volatile moves in both directions, and we're seeing it play out one of those directions right now. And what happens is eventually it plays out a direction and then it plays out the other direction. So it's in an interesting spot. Now in the think or swim side of things, we see there was a brief trigger and fire here, also a one candle trigger and fire here. So don't exactly know what that was all about. I mean, this put in a bit of dip action. Maybe this is this entire dip playing out from just this one candle trigger, way up here. And now this sort of double push down off of the mid-range, maybe that's this playing out. But we also see the bearish momentum picking up and then dying off as it was trying to hold the mid-range or just under the mid-range, but then it pushed back down all the way out of the lower bound of the channel, and that picked up the bearish momentum again without it ever even returning to the baseline or even getting that close to the baseline. So seeming as though there may be some more bearish momentum that wants to be exhausted there. That said, the flip side of that coin is it was out of the channel. It has worked its way back into the channel and is darn close right now to the mid-range. The mid-range right now is sitting at 17.11. Price action a bit over 16.5 right now. So you know, it's trying, and it's trying to push, and like we said, it's a relatively top-heavy candle for the time being. So we'll see if that, you know, persists or not. And that channel and all these levels move. Every time a candle gets put in, it shifts the channel. It's dynamic, and so it's 17.11 right now, but it won't be as additional candles get put in. So we'll see, you know, where those things sort of meet, and if they sort of collide in the middle area somewhere between the current price action and the 17.11. But, you know, it is interesting to see it trying to reach the mid-range of the channel again. I think this is a telling moment on this view of things, of whether or not it has the gusto to get to the mid-range. Even if it pushes off of it, you know, just having the oomph to get to it may be a sign of at least potential for it to try to stem the tide, curtail the bleeding a little bit. But time will tell if it can even get there, and then what it does when it gets there. I'll just repeat it. You know, my ideal setup, even though we don't see it right here, would be it pinning the price action to the mid-range of the channel. Not exactly this, but really like candles like this, like constantly on the mid-range of the channel, really stabilizing, consolidating the price while we start to get a series of trigger candles, not just this single, you know, solo trigger candle. I love that setup. You can sort of see it coming. Doesn't always play out, of course, but could be interesting to see with all of the volatility that's taken place. You know, this has been a wild ride here, even if you back it up a little bit, right? Several wild rides, brief period of consolidation here led to another wild ride, and now another wild ride. And so sort of wondering, can we get a period of consolidation again? And I would say, in sort of the macro view, that if we were to get a period of consolidation here, maybe between the 1603 and 1696, just for example, I'm not saying it's going to happen, it would be significantly higher than the consolidation area here, right? So that could be something. But it even has to play out for it to even have the potential to be something. And that said, you know, when it breaks, it could still break down. So it could move sideways, consolidate, and then break down. So it doesn't mean that it's going to be the be-all, end-all savior for the bulls, but it at least sort of like provides an opportunity. You know, that's, or you see these wild, like full retracements and then bang, up, right? I mean, you had a catalyst there. But, you know, you see it back here too, right? Peel back, pretty big retracement, bang. Consolidate, bang. So who knows if this is going to be like a near full retracement, near gap fill, and then it could bang. Who knows? But, you know, like I say, it's at an interesting inflection point, downtrend resistance, gap, a bunch of resistance and support levels pretty tight in, while trying to make a run at that mid-range of the channel. So a bunch of factors sort of all leading to the road of it's at an interesting point. I'm interested to wait and see what happens. Again, you know, I should have said this within the first minute, not in the last 8 minutes, but not a crystal ball channel. So this isn't a prediction. It's just sort of trying to unpack the view, where things are, and just sort of say, we're going to have to see what it does with this in order to feel like, does it have a chance to break out of here? Is it looking like it wants to come back down and maybe fill this gap after all? You know, or is it going to just go sideways and let things consolidate for a little bit? All right, folks, I hope that your trading week has been going well. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.